Welcome to the 70s Show. Just sit back and relax while we fill your mind with a vast amount of knowledge covering the 1970s. First off, the 1970s didn't have a running start to a good year. The welfare system came under attack with people's dependency to the federal government raising welfare clients $6.6 million since the 1960s. Nixon tried on several occasions to reform the federal bureaucracy with little success. In 1972, 5 men under Nixon's instructions had wiretap equipment that went into the Watergate offices of the Democratic National Committee. These plumbers, ordered by Nixon's staff, broke into the Watergate Hotel and planted bugs to acquire specific information on running electives. The plumbers were arrested, but later details began to reveal that they were connected to the Nixon administration. Nixon and his staff tried to cover it up, which later did not play well with the officials and the Supreme Court. Nixon kept a tape recorder in his office to record everything, and supposedly had meetings which he either ordered his staff to carry out the Watergate scandal, or he quietly supported their call. Nixon was brought up on several charges, whereas the Supreme Court tried to get Nixon to hand over the tapes, but Nixon refused. Nixon endured 2 years of mounting political embarrassment. Losing millions of supporters, Nixon faced impeachment, and in 1974, the smoking gun tape was released by a court. Nixon refused impeachment until he realized it was inevitable to avoid his presidency impeachment. Therefore, Nixon became the first president to resign in 1974. Now, in 1973, before Nixon resigned, stagflation arose with both inflation and unemployment. A major cause of inflation was the surging cost of oil. After World War II, the U.S. became dependent on foreign oil, especially of Arabian oil. An increased cost of oil was a major cause of inflation. The price increase was caused by problems in the Middle East, but most significant started in 1973 when the Arabian oil producers imposed an embargo. The decision to boycott America and punish the West in response to support for Israel in the Yom Kippur War against Egypt led to the price of crude oil to rise. Arabian countries had formed the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries so that they would get paid more for their oil. This had quadrupled foreign prices. The price change caused the energy crisis in the U.S. Severe hardships were experienced in the country. While the cost of gasoline, heating oil, and electricity soared among American citizens, it hadn't risen until the oil spill occurred off the coast of California in 1969, and the first Earth Day was celebrated in April of 1970. These celebrations of Earth Day were to express the problem of the environment and wave awareness. Congress then had passed 4 acts to help the energy crisis: the Environmental Protection Agency, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, Clean Air Act, and Water Quality Improvement Act. Instead of fixing most of his attention on the energy crisis, he sought out to improve relations with People's Republic of China. The improved relationships sought to enhance American power in Asia. When Nixon visited China, the two nations had agreed to work together and promote peace in the Pacific region and develop trade relations and cultural and scientific ties. Nixon also agreed to take American troops out of Taiwan. Next, Nixon traveled to Moscow, Russia, to speak with the Russian leader Leonid Brezhnev. The two also agreed to promote trade and cooperate on other issues of mutual concern. Around this time, General Ford was sworn in as the 38th president. After a month of taking presidency, he gave Nixon a full pardon, causing Ford's popularity to drop 37%. Ford tried to curb inflation by cutting federal spending and vetoing several social welfare bills. This caused the country to go into a recession. May of 1975, Cambodian communists seized the Mayaguez, an unarmed U.S. cargo ship. Ford launched a military action to free the vessel and its crew. 41 Americans were killed in an effort to release the 39 crew members. Many Americans criticized Ford's hasty, ill-timed actions. It was later known that the crew was being released before the troops were sent. This incident became known as the last Vietnam War. Sunday, July 4th, 1976 was the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Congress created the American Revolution Bicentennial Commission on July 4th, 1966. Congress created which was charged with encouraging and coordinating locally sponsored events. New coins were made for the celebration of the 200th year since the Declaration of Independence. All across the country, people celebrated. Showing his intentions to stay in touch with the people during his presidential campaign, Carter became the 39th president. At the beginning of Carter's election, Congress created the Department of Energy in 1977. It passed the National Energy Act to relax controls on the price of natural gas. This didn't help the overall crisis. In 1979, a revolution in Iran disrupted world oil shipments, creating another energy crisis. A few months later, the price of oil raised 50%. Gas stations closed, and people sat in their cars waiting hours to fill their gas tanks. After Soviet had invaded Afghanistan, Carter had decided to make a peace accord with the Middle East. Meeting with the Egyptian president Anwar Sadat and Israel Premier Menachem Begin, the three began on a framework for peace, which was known as the Camp David Accords. The two countries, Israel and Egypt, had signed a formal peace treaty, ending 30 years of war between them. In 1977, one of America's most celebrated celebrities, Elvis Presley, died. Presley's death was a shock to citizens across the nation, and people to this day still mourn his death. Along with Presley's death, the 1970s brought motion picture events that hit big with the classic movies such as Star Wars, Rocky, Jaws, The Godfather, Grease, and James Bond that had brought people towards the movie industry. Kids were being brought more and more into the movie industry. Along with more kid cartoons, disco was particularly popular. The usual crowd that danced disco would dance to it in clubs. In the 1970s, partner dancing was revived, and with the disco dancers adopting the local teen style of swing kept alive by Latinos during the 60s. Platform shoes, along with wide-legged, flared jeans and trousers, were the style worn by both sexes throughout most of the decade. The disco look was completed with three-piece suit for men and a jersey wrap dresses for women.